At the start of this year, some 10, 11 months ago, I moved away from Mitsubishi Shoguns, having had 3 versions over 10 years, and made the move to the Range Rover L322. And at the time, I asked the question, am I stupid or am I brave? Well, now, some 10 months later, 13,000 miles later, I want to ask the question, is the L322 not only the best Range Rover, but the best car ever? Welcome to this week's Fast and Fun. Before I bought the car, I did what every potential buyer does. You go on the internet, you go on the forums, you go on YouTube, and what you end up with is just financial disastrous stories. People saying it's a stupid thing to do, massively unreliable, huge cost of ownership. Well, I want to dispel some of those. You see, the few that suffer these, I would argue in many cases, have either done it because they want clickbait for YouTube, or the few that have suffered with Range Rovers are very vocal on the internet. I think if you buy a well cared for one, a well looked after one, a service one, regular service, and this, by the way, is not a garage queen. This is now stands at 138,000 miles on this. I bought it with 125,000 on. This has been well used, and I normally wash the car and clean the car for videos. But do you know what? No, because this used and abused example, this is what it's used for, daily driving. And this car, probably more than any other car in my 30 odd years of driving, has got a hook in me, something that very, very few cars can do, because it's got versatility. We've got looks, we've got performance, we've got the badge, we've got practicality, we've got off-road, we've got luxurious, we've got a whole host of things that it wins and is top of the class for me in so many areas. And that's why I think it puts a compelling case across that says this is potentially one of the best cars ever, period. But where do we start first? Well, for me, it's probably the badge. Very few cars can pull off what the Range Rover can with just its name. People that know nothing about cars, if you say a Range Rover, they create this shape, this class that largely sits above most other models and manufacturers. But yet it's at home in the muddy fields, carrying animal feed, towing, doing the supermarket run, dropping the grandchildren off, going to work, or in fact going into a luxurious part of a town or city and parking in front of an expensive restaurant. It can do everything. And I'm not sure many cars, if any, other than Range Rover can do that. For me, it ekes class. And then there's the looks. The box on wheels, really stretching right back to the first generation, the classic Range Rover. It's hardly ever changed. It's the rectangular brick, the 2.8 tons. That's the weight of the L322, and a colossal beast, giving huge road presence. And that classic look sits high, sits wide. It's such a big, boxy vehicle. But do you know what? I think it ages beautifully. I think the L322, of all of the models, is the one for me now that it's got the traditional box shape. It's not become too curvy, a little bit too rounded like the later L405s. It still stays with its tradition at its core. And I absolutely love the looks. Take every badge off this car, and 95% of people, regardless of their love of cars or not, will recognise what this is. And very, very few cars, again, can pull that off. For everybody's belief that these Range Rovers are fragile, think again. The build quality for me, these feel robust, they feel solid. Listen to the door. It just opens and shuts with a big thud. The tailgate. Obviously, the typical Range Rover split folding tailgate, but when you close it back up, it shuts with a big, solid, mechanical thud. The bonnet's the same. This is built, feels like a Tonka toy from the 80s. You can use them, you can abuse them, and they just take it. And the buttons inside are absolutely no different. They're chunky, they're solid. Everything feels like it's well screwed together. 138,000 miles, 12 years old, and all this. There's no rattles, there's no squeaks at all. It's silent. And it all feels like it's been made with premium materials, which it has. And that's the good thing about the Range Rover, because spec is almost, to a degree, immaterial, because even the base models are so highly spec'd with really most things that you ever truly need. So now, let's take it out on some of my local roads and carry on telling you the things that I'm falling in love with on my L322. Luxury. The cabin oozes luxury and quality. From the deep, thick, chunky carpets that your feet just sort of sink into, all the way through, just make sure I don't run these people over, all the way through to the seats. The big, soft, quality of the leather feels nice. You just sink into them. The leather and the stitching on the dash, the materials that have been used, it has that, the buttons, they feel chunky and they're robust and built to last. Even the gear select lever, which some people sort of have a dig at because they prefer the traditional big stick lever, the way this motors out of the dash, I still think that's very much JLR of its period, and I actually like it. It feels just less cluttered around the centre console. But it's got quality and luxury built in, but practicality as well. And the way Range Rover have done it and is really, really clever. And to be truthful, for me, it's still one of my best cabins of any car. And next up is its off-road capabilities. Few road-going 4x4s offer the same experience off-road as the L322. It is fabulous. The way it can adapt to some pretty challenging conditions. I'm not going to take it into the fields today, and that's more to save the fields and me churning up the fields badly rather than the car. But as long as you've got good quality tyres, this is running on Pirelli Scorpions, which is the sort of the go-to tyres for the L322. They pull through off-road brilliantly. The Range had a tough late summer when we were getting all the hay in. It was towing off-road. It was working really hard, absolutely effortless. And then when we're in wet conditions, muddy conditions, it just takes and absorbs anything that you can throw at it, any sort of terrain. And it's helped because you've got an array of off-road switchgear to help you through those different conditions. So you can increase and decrease the ride height. They are limited to certain speeds if you do, but that straight away gives you some immediate benefit. If I just park up here, I'll take you through So you've got increase and decrease ride height. You've got in the middle, you've got hill descent, which you can select hill descent, which means you remove your foot from the accelerator and it will control independent braking down slippery slopes off-road. And then you've got your rocker switch nearest the driver, which can select high, which is your standard road going setting, or low, which is your off-road. But the real piece de resistance for the L322 is the 5 selector modes. Down on the inter console, and it will come up on your dash what you're selected on. So I'm currently in road, but if I move across to the right, it moves into what's called grass and gravel, snow program. You can go right again, which takes you into mud and ruts. You can then move across into sand, and the furthest one on the right is the rock crawl. So they've all got different modes for the different selections and working with the differentials to help you pull the Range Rover out of pretty much any off-road condition. Fabulous. I've never been stuck. I've never nearly been stuck in this for everyday small holding work. And then I've got to get onto the engine and the gearbox. This 4.4 litre TD V8 with the 8-speed ZF Auto work harmoniously together. So this engine produces 510 brake horsepower and a colossal 700 newton meters of torque, and that gives it some serious performance. This car, considering the huge weight at 2.8 tonne, accelerates quicker than any 2.8 tonne 4x4 has any right to. It really does eat into distances very quickly. It's quick, it's refined as well for a diesel. That V8, it's got some diesel noise, but the V8 is the stronger note from it, but it's the performance. You'll never be left wanting and needing more power. And all that power doesn't come without control and driver enjoyment. The driving experience is very good. You're sat up high, which gives you great visibility, and the windows are, well, even the front window, so vertical, just feels like you're sort of driving from inside a goldfish bowl. And the windows drop really low, which gives the whole cabin a very airy feel to it. And on the way it handles and controls the road, the damping, the suspension, very clever. It masks much of its bulk through the corners. Of course, there's got to be some body roll, just by the laws of physics, because if they'd have tried to dispel all that, the ride would have just become too harsh. But they seem to have got the balance between firmness and control through corners, but having the compliance of a big 4x4 off-roader. And the steering, of course, it's not razor sharp like a sports car is, but it still does offer something, much more than more modern day cars. The whole experience is actually really enjoyable. So you'd think with that much performance and that much weight, fuel consumption is going to be dreadful. And this is the piece de resistance for the L322, the 4.4 TD V8. Around my local country lanes and roads, it'll return normally high 20s, which is pretty good considering the weight and performance on tap. But take this on the motorway, sit it at 70, and at 70 it's ticking over at 1400 RPM only. you'll see 36 or even 37 mpg. And what this does, it gives us, as an all-round type of car, the daily go-to car, an average fuel consumption that normally sits somewhere around 30 or just over mpg. And for a car as heavy as this, performance as good as this, luxury as good as this, that feels like incredible mpg. Value is a really good one, because everybody knows Range Rovers depreciate, and they depreciate fast. Well, the good thing about an L322, even the last ones off the line like this, the 2012, are now 12 years old. The eldest are over 20 years old. And what does that mean? It means they've lost all the value. Now you can get L322s from, well, £1,000 or £2,000. A really good, tidy example, low mileage, for probably 10 to 15,000. These were 70, 80,000 pound cars 20 years ago. They've lost all their value. And now you can buy one and almost drive it depreciationless. Yes, there's going to be a few more costs associated with running an older Range Rover. Of course, that comes with the territory. But the biggest killer when buying any form of car, especially a daily which you will put miles on, is depreciation. It is the silent killer. Well, do you know what? I've let the previous 2 or 3 owners lose that money. I paid just over 9,000 for this, with 125,000 miles on the clock. And if I put another 60, 70,000 miles on the clock, yes, it will lose some more money, but it's going to be 1,000 here, 1,000 there, when you're not going to be talking. It can't lose much more. And the worst of it is, I use it till it dies and then just sell it as a spares and repairs. The L322 has never been as affordable. For me, it offers stupendous value for money. So there we go. Mine and my other half's love affair with the Range Rover. The best daily in the world? Look, there's no such thing as a perfect car. But I've covered some whole areas of things that I absolutely love about the L322. Has the car let me down in my 13,000 miles? Yes, on one occasion it has this year. And it's been serviced, and it's had a couple of minor repairs, and it's cost me a little bit. And I'm going to do a video once I get into the new year on the running costs of this L322. But overall, it's a car that both Ali, my other half, and I are falling in love with. It is becoming our go-to car for anything, for everything. The way the car can tow trailers and horse boxes, you just barely know it's on the back. Its off-road flexibility, its on-road presence, its performance, its versatility. Everything smacks of a car that just delivers and keeps on delivering. I absolutely love my L322. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned.